Hello! So, my video today is going to be discussing some of the different phases that I've gone through in my awakening process and basically how they played out. Um, so, the first phase that I went through was basically a deconstruction and death of my ego. Um, Basically, a lot of bad things happened to me that forced me to find another way to live. I was confronted with the way that my ego was operating. I had a victim mentality. Um, I was very depressed, and I was basically letting the world eat me alive. And I had to decide to take responsibility for myself and my own happiness. And usually, from my experience with people I've talked to, um, it's not uncommon for this to be the beginning of someone's awakening because sometimes you're just forced to perceive the world in a new way. Not everyone is going to have an easy, happy awakening where they just wake up one day meditating. Um, it takes a lot. Life and the universe has a way of pushing you where you need to go sometimes. Um, then there was a very long phase of learning. Once I awakened to my own power and recognized that perception truly is reality, I began to do a lot of research, learn about things like synchronicities, meditation, yoga, all sorts of ways to align myself. I learned more about the chakras. This was a very exciting time for me. I felt like I was like a little kid running around at Disney, like basically I was exploring a whole new world, kind of like that Aladdin song, if you know, you know. Yeah, and it was really fun, but I was definitely still very engaged in many habits and stuff that weren't very good for me. Instead of dealing with my problems, I would usually just distract myself with something positive. So I kind of engaged in toxic positivity for a while and just wanted to have fun, and I didn't really want to do that much of the difficult work that needed to be done. But I don't have any shame about that. I know that it was meant to happen that way, and that my brain just needed a break and it needed to have some fun before some of the dirty work needed to be done. I began to become more peaceful and learn that my inner world is a reflection of my outer world, and that my outer world is a reflection of my inner world. In the next phase of my awakening, I began to realize that when I judge others, it's a reflection of how I see myself and my own worldview. So that was a very interesting part of my journey. Um, and then I went through this really intense emotional phase of my awakening. Basically, after a while of just kind of playing around in this new world I had discovered, I began to realize that there were a lot of traumas in my life and things that I had been pushing aside, and they began to come up for me. It wasn't really something that I willed or consciously desired to have happen. It just sort of started happening, and that's usually how suppressing your emotions goes. They just kind of show up one day and they're like, pay attention to me. So I started going to therapy. I actually started living by myself because I realized that I had an issue with becoming attached to other people very easily, and I didn't really know how to be happy with just me. So I chose to live by myself for those reasons, even though living with other people probably would have been more fun and easier and whatnot. I learned how to deal with my emotions more, to accept them and not to run away from them, which is a really powerful lesson that I'm really grateful for. And basically, I also learned how to pick myself up when I'm having a breakdown, how to go into that meditative state when things are not going to be dealt with in the consciousness that I'm currently in. I learned a lot about my past and where my belief systems come from and whatnot. A part of me is definitely still in this phase. I think it's just such an important phase to be in, to really learn how to deal with your emotions, because emotion is such a big part of being human. Um, and then I went through this like really intense purge phase. I had a Kundalini awakening, and my subconscious was brought to the surface in a way that was very magnified, even more than before. And I basically dealt with a lot of anxiety and a lot of intense feelings for a couple months. And I think I handled it pretty well. Initially, I was resisting them, but I learned the power of surrendering to my feelings and also had to make sure that they don't overwhelm me by exercising and stuff. I also went through a phase of learning about how healthy eating and being in nature is so incredibly important. I changed a lot of my habits, and that was a really good phase of my awakening. Right now, I would describe the phase that I'm in as a declutter sort of phase. I'm clearing out a lot of past energies. I'm learning how to shield myself from certain energies and how to release things and let go and move on. So that's where I'm at right now. I have an inclination that the next phase of my awakening is going to be something about inspiration and also connection, learning how to really connect with others on a new kind of level. I feel like that's something that I need to work on. So there's probably a lesson in store about that. All right, well, that was basically my story so far. I'm very much at the beginning of my awakening process. There's still so much work I have to do, but that's where I'm at now. Let me know if you're in any of those phases right now, and maybe we can chat about it. Have a good one. Namaste.